My name's David McVicker. I'm the superintendent at CK, and this is our first ever parent night for what the heck is this digital thing going on in our world. And we are thrilled to have Jeff Utecht here, who was our opening speaker at the beginning of the year for staff and has experiences all over the world. And Jeff, as you can see, is not quite as gray as I am and still has his hair left. Therefore, he's valid in the digital age, and I'm not. But thank you for spending part of your evening with us, and we're thrilled that you're here. And we are videotaping the presentation. We'll put it on the website. If you have friends and you leave, or you don't want to take notes, you just want to listen, and you can look at it later. Hopefully that'll be available for you soon. So with that, please help me welcome Jeff Utecht to CK.
It's always good. I love this. There we go. Better than tingle. Good. Well, thanks for having me. It's always good to be back. The hair dye is obviously working really well. But thank you for joining me tonight in what I hope will be a good hour spent here. It's glad to see some of you brought the entire family out, which is great. We're going to do some activities that hopefully the whole family can do together. Or if not, you're going to make a new family here real soon. With other people in the room, so we're going to do that. But what we're going to talk about tonight is just about this digital world we find ourselves in, and what does that mean for parents and for us in the school system, and how do we work together to make sure we're raising kids the quote-unquote right way, whatever that means in today's world. So that's kind of where we go. There's going to be kind of three parts to today. The first part, I just want to give us some background information and some food for thought. And then we're going to do a little activity in the middle, and then I'll finish it up with some other ideas of things that you might be able to take home and think about as we continue to raise kids in this new digital age. I've been working all day with teachers. I got to spend 6 hours today with a group of about 30 teachers over at the admin building, and then just got done spending 2 hours with the admin team upstairs, where we're talking about this idea of blended. Of how do we teach in blended spaces, the idea that we live in both a digital world and a physical world. And then tonight, we're going to be talking about how do we parent in both of those worlds. Because the reality is we have to. We have to parent in both of those worlds. It's the world that we live in today. And to get us started, I just want us to think about this for a second. If you will just think on your own, how many connected devices do you personally own that you would say are yours? How many do you have? Just personal for you. Don't forget your Fitbit, your Kindle, your car if it's connected to the internet. And then, this is a harder one. How many connected devices does your entire family own? Don't forget the PlayStation, the refrigerator, the light bulbs. How many connected devices do you own? The watches. And then I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of math and see if you can come up with your family's device-to-person ratio. What is your device-to-person ratio in your house? How many devices per person do you own? Don't forget your television. You have a smart TV next to the internet. So we were looking a little bit worried at the moment. All right. Raise your hand if your device-to-person ratio in your house is greater than 3 to 1. 4 to 1, keep your hand up. 5, 6, 7. 7 devices per person in your house. Yeah, it's interesting where we are right now. According to the latest statistics, right now we're running roughly 3.5 devices per person, or roughly 5.7 devices in a household, regardless of social economic status. That just is the way we live in 2016. And interesting more is to look at where this leads into the future. And what they say is by 2020, which is only 4 years from now, we're looking at almost 7 devices per person and almost 20 devices per household when you think about what's going to happen. And for better or for worse, this is just the way we live. This is 2016. And so we keep thinking about why not in schools? If we live life in a 3-to-1 world, 4-to-1 world, why are schools so different? And why have schools been so late to adopt this? And what are we doing to prepare kids for their future, not our past? And that's a big one. You're going to hear me say that a lot today. Prepare them for their future, not our past. Because one of the problems with education is that we all survived it in some form or another. And so we all remember what education should look like, smell like, and be like. The problem is the world around us has forever changed due to the internet. There's a great article that just came out last week called What It's Like to Be the Last Generation to Remember Life Before the Internet. If you are over the age of 18, you are the last generation to remember life without the internet. And that's weird. Because they're comparing us to the generation that remembers the life without the book. Not since the book has there been a technology that has transformed the human race than the book and now the internet. And so we are now in schools thinking about this. Why not in schools? How can we use this to our advantage? What does that mean when this is the way we work, live, play, sleep, and breathe? How many of you use your cell phone as an alarm clock? Which means the last thing you touch before you go to bed and the first thing you touch when you wake up in the morning is a connected device. And it's the kids that have the problem. You think it's the kids that have the problem. And you're the one that touches a connected device last and first thing in the morning. And when you touch that device in the morning, do you just shut off the alarm or do you find that there's another habit that you've formed? Turn and talk to the person next to you. Introduce yourself if you haven't, because they're going to become your family here shortly. And talk about your new bad habits with technology devices.
For everything?
Yes.
I use my phone for everything.
Then, as we come back together, this is a list of skills from the Future Jobs Report that came out from the World Economic Forum, looking globally at what are the skills needed by 2020. Now, the problem with looking at 2020 is that only covers the kids for the next 4 years. So you're only talking our freshmen and above. Right? And what we're going to dig into a little bit later is looking at what are the skills for 2030 that we're already starting to predict are the skills that kids need 15 years from now and out. But as you look at that, where we were in 2015 and where we are in 2020, go ahead and get back into a conversation. What do you notice there? What do you notice hasn't changed? Do you agree or disagree? Do you think something should be taken from that list? Or is there something from that list that you think is missing? Have that conversation with your partner real quick. So it's a pretty interesting list. We can debate these lists all night. They always come out, and it's interesting to look at where we are. One of the things that sticks out to me, one of the things I think that's impacting education right now the most, and I find very, very fascinating personally, is this idea of people management and coordinating with others has gone from 2 and 3 to 4 and 5. And I find that an interesting one. I find also the idea of emotional intelligence, which didn't show up 5 years ago. Being able to relate to other people of different cultures, be able to have empathy. Are we losing empathy because of the internet? Are we losing empathy because of our connection? Which is funny because we use these devices to talk to people more than we ever have before. We are texting more than we ever have before. We're communicating as a human race more than we ever have before. We're reading more as a race than we ever have before. And yet we're losing emotional intelligence that we had to put it on the list. I find that fascinating. I think that's interesting. I also like this idea of coordinating with others and people management. Because when we're talking about people management in 2020, we're not talking about being able to manage people and coordinate or collaborate face-to-face, but globally as well. Of how do I manage people that I am sitting in a group of 4, and we have to figure out how to get along, but how do you get along in a digital space as well? Do any of you here work where you have a digital team, where you have a team that is off-site, okay, that you have to manage or somehow talk to? It's becoming more and more regular part of our workday, of our jobs, is figuring out how do we have emotional intelligence, not just face-to-face, but also what does emotional intelligence look like in a digital world? One of the first things I think about when I think about this is the use of emojicons. Why do emojicons exist? Why did we decide to create them? And why have they become so popular that last year it was the word of the year was the laughing, crying emojicon? Why do you think? Yeah.
You lose tone.
You lose tone.
And so, I can say the same sentence two different ways and it can come out as ha-ha funny or completely snarky, cut you to the bone.
Yes, depending on what emojicon you use at the end of the sentence.
Exactly.
It is so fascinating that you see when we move to a texting-based world, we lost this idea of feeling. We lost this idea we were saying. People can't understand this anymore. So we created an entirely new language to bring that back. It is so important that where are you teaching your kids emoticon etiquette? And you laugh whenever you're having that conversation because I hate you and I hate you with a wink are two different I hate you statements. Not that I'm saying either one of them are appropriate, I'm saying they're two different statements. Okay? And you can probably think of a lot of other statements where if you use the right emojicon, it makes an entirely different sentence. It's interesting. Where are we having those conversations in our school? Not just about how you write. I'm a substitute teacher on my days off, which aren't very many, but I substitute over in Seattle Public Schools. And I had kids doing a writing thing on an iPad, and the 5th graders found the emojicon, which meant then they were just emojiing their writing. And we were writing letters to the state representative. I'm like, this isn't going to work. They're not going to be able to decipher this. So we had to have an emojicon lesson. Like, why is this important? And we were allowed to use one in our writing if it added feeling to the paper. And then the kids had to decide which one was it that added feeling. It's a great lesson to have with your kids. Talk with your students or your kids about the use of emojicons. I find that interesting. It's an interesting list. Right? If you think about then the skills of the future, what other skills that aren't on that list, or even think about skills in your workplace that you think should be on that list? Or as you think about, if you're working with this generation that is between 18 and 32 years old. Anybody here between the ages of 18 and 32? Raise your hand proud, as you always do. Yes, look at them. We don't like them. We don't like them. It's okay. They're the first internet generation. We like to blame them for everything, and a lot of us work with these people in different jobs. But I want you to think about, what do you see as the future skills for your sons and daughters? What are the skills that you think are going to be important for them as they go through school and enter society as well? Turn and talk to your neighbor about that. What other skills? What other skills for your sons and daughters would you like to see on that list? Or as an employee or an employer, any other skills you think we should add to that list? Do you see it there? Yeah. Teamwork. Teamwork. Working in a team. I like that one. Yeah.
Basic word processing skills in spreadsheet database management. I mean, a simple thing where you ask somebody to find something and it takes them 3 hours to find a file makes you want to just crawl through the computer and go.
So database management, spreadsheet, word processing, and just overall organizational of digital information.
Correct.
Yeah. How many of you suffer from that? That you know, and this becomes the problem. I put the file inside the folder, so I knew which folder I put the file in, but can't find the file of the folder I put it in. And then you spend a half hour going, now where did I put that file? Your organization structure was so good that it takes you another half hour to find the file that you so well organized. Here's part of the problem. When we move to a digital-based world, we switch from organizing stuff to searching stuff. Do you realize if you teach yourself to search well, you find things way faster? The most important part of any computer is the search capability. And not for you to search Google, but for that machine to search itself. Are you spending time looking through folders, or do you know how to use the search functionality of your computer or your phone, or whatever it happens to be, to find the stuff? We don't organize digital information. That's why it's called a search engine. Okay? It's an interesting shift, because we've always been taught, we all went through the educational process that taught us to organize things. By shape, color, likeness, subject, you put them in folders. And now we live in a digitally overwhelming world that doesn't work. But we still try to put the structures that we were taught in school so well so long ago into a new paradigm. So you start looking at then what is coming for those for college and career readiness. And this is a big thing right now in education, this idea of college and career readiness. And just a couple days ago, a new report, this actually came out on the 12th of October, so it's only about a week old. And they surveyed over 15,000 university professors around America and asked them their take on technology at the university level. And I found the statistics pretty interesting. Over 71% of professors say they use a mix of online and face-to-face, or this idea of blended learning, much like blended parenting, right, in the university level. That they assign, 94% of professors in university assign work that requires technology to get your homework done or get assignments done. That with technology, will technology will have a positive role in the education in the future? 97% believe it will. And so if we're looking at preparing students to go on to college, whether that's going to OC, which I'm a proud graduate of, thank you very much. Thank you. I got my AAS there years ago while I was chasing my wife around the mall down here. But here it's not, so anyway, right? But it's interesting, right? 97%. But we have this, so when we talk about if you have a kid that's in middle school or high school, right, are we preparing them? Is the school preparing them to learn in that environment? If they're going to go on to university, that is the environment that awaits them. And so we need to start preparing them of understanding how do you learn in digital spaces. And not just in digital spaces. I'm not talking online learning. We're talking this idea of blended. Right? This idea of being face-to-face, knowing how to work in a team face-to-face, but also knowing how to work in a team that's digital as well. Then we started looking at what are the skills that are coming out when we look at 2035. And if you start looking at 2035, here are the skills that they believe are some of the top skills we need to be teaching kids today. The first skill is computational thinking. The idea of taking massive data sets, that we're going to have all this information in spreadsheets and data and make meaning of it. Where are we allowing students to take massive sets of data and then try to draw conclusions from it? One example that I worked with a teacher the other day is if you go to census.gov, you get all of the census data from around America. And you can and they're massive, like the one for the state of Washington is like almost 300 megabytes. It's a massive file that has all kinds of cool stuff in it. And when you open that file, it is just a mess. How do you make sense of that for real world change? That is an interesting way to use technology in school. Here's the second skill. This is the thing I like. The first skill is computational technology thinking. The second skill, caregiving. What a great balance that is. And when we talk about caregiving, we're talking about that emotional intelligence, that the idea of empathy. And it's not just caregiving of our generation, but it's caregiving of each other. It's the idea of how do we get along in these spaces. And that is going to be just as critical of a skill. Almost 38% of all jobs by 2035 will have something to do with empathy or emotional intelligence. Not only can you program computers and be able to make sense of data, but then can you relate to real people. And what does that mean and what does that look like? Another one is social intelligence and new media literacy. Where are we teaching kids or have the opportunity to teach kids about the new media literacy that faces us? Now, you can try to block your kids from Instagram and Facebook and all the social networks and it won't work because they're kids and they'll find a way around it. And are we doing them a disservice by trying to keep them off of something that really what we should be doing is having a conversation about how do you use it appropriately? And what does new media literacy look like? How do you read ads? How do you read images? What does it take to make a video? What is the social intelligence? How do you make something go viral? Why do videos go viral? How do things end up in your Facebook stream? Or do you just believe that Facebook is the almighty, perfect technology that you believe everything that is shown up in front of you on Facebook? Interesting stat. 75% of Americans get their news through Facebook. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying as of May 2016, that's the statistic. And here's the problem with getting your news through Facebook when you roll over in the morning and shut off your alarm and grab your phone. Is that Facebook is a self-selected news source, adults, of people who think and look just like you. And so you have people that believe exactly what you believe and you never see the other side of the story. Because you have self-selected every single friend that you see. And Facebook is already hiding friends they know that you disagree with. friend, what happens if you have a friend that all of a sudden disagrees with you? What do? Unfriend them. And kick them out of the circle. Making my social network even smaller and smaller and smaller. I hate to get political, but there's a reason why this country is getting bluer and redder and less purple. And it's because of us, not because of this generation. It's because of us. That's how we get our news. 75% of us, Facebook is our #1 news source. Are you keeping friends in your newsfeed that you disagree with, that make you uncomfortable? Are you showing your students how you can watch different news sources and be okay with it without blowing up? By listening to the other side and being okay to be uncomfortable? Is that what we're helping our students understand? That you need to get a broad overview of the world. And then how do you make your own opinion based on everything? Not based on a narrow stream of information that you self-selected and is made just for you. The next skill is lifelong learning. One of the things we're really struggling with right now in schools is this idea that knowledge isn't what it used to be. That what you know today is not as important as what you could learn tomorrow. Think of that sentence for a second. What you know today is not as important as what you could learn tomorrow. The problem is we are living in an educational system, and we all went through an educational system that taught us things we might need to know just in case we needed to use it in the future. It's a just-in-case system. It was built over 200 years ago. Of course it's a just-in-case system. Because the idea is we're going to try and teach you everything you might need to be successful in life. And then, good luck. Life experience is the rest of everything you've got. My grandfather made it through the 8th grade before he had to drop out. Life experience and what the knowledge he had through 8th grade is what he had for his career. Versus a kid that grows up today. Your children do not know life without the internet. No, excuse me. Your children do not know life without YouTube. How many of you have ever learned anything by watching a YouTube video? Right there, keep your hand up. That is why YouTube needs to be unblocked for your kids. It is the greatest educational network ever created by mankind. Turn and talk to your neighbor and tell them something crazy you learned watching YouTube videos. Quick. There's something crazy they've learned watching YouTube videos. Yes, what'd you learn? How to put a belt on a side by side. Side by side. How to put a belt on a side by side. Watching a YouTube video. Good for you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Found out what an eye was.
Found out what a what?
An eye.
An eye.
A little animal with this long finger and
There you go. Found out what an eye is. And my list of things to look up after the keynote keeps growing.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you think it should be unblocked, how do you stop X-rated content?
You can't. That's why you have to have a conversation.
Alright, so you're saying, just have a little combo and they can go watch the sex tapes, no problem.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we need to have a conversation.
Alright?
What else have you learned from watching YouTube video? Yeah.
I fixed my refrigerator.
Fixed my refrigerator.
Probably would have bought
Took money away from a refrigerator repairman. And didn't feel bad doing it. What else did you learn? What else did you learn? Yeah.
How to take a dashboard apart
How to take a dashboard apart out of your car?
in 15 minutes.
In 15 minutes. But the video was only 3. Right? Video's only 3. Yeah. Another idea. Yeah. Yeah. You can filter it. Yeah, you can filter it at different levels. But something will get through. Something always will. Yeah, but you can filter it at different levels. Yeah. Yeah. Rebuild a carburetor in your car. Took money away from a car mechanic. Didn't feel bad about it. Yeah.
Install a French door.
Install a French door in your house. Took money away from a
We
contractor.
figured out it was over our heads, and so we hired
Oh.
one.
How far did you get before what makes somebody to do this one?
We bought some supplies, and then we sat down to watch it, and then he called me up, and we watched it together, and then
Yeah.
we watched it again, and then we went, yeah, go ahead and call the guy.
Yeah, call it out. Yeah. So even now, we get to determine at what level we're willing to do stuff before we're like, this is out of my, it's easier to call somebody.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Good. Yeah, here's the thing though. Every single one of those, you learn the moment you needed to know it. And think about this. in society, we've already made this switch, this educational switch, that you learn things the moment you need to know it. You didn't watch the video to fix your refrigerator thinking like, oh, my refrigerator might break one day. I better watch the YouTube video today so I know how to do it when it happens. Right? We watch videos the moment we need to know how to do things. These kids today are growing up in a just-in-time educational environment. Yet they are stuck in a school system that was built in just in case. We teach you everything just in case you need to know it, yet you can learn anything the moment you need to know it. And that's a massive shift for the educational institutions. And that is something we are dealing with. Yet society, outside of schools, we use it all the time and we like it. I'm driving over Snoqualmie Pass not too long ago. Perfect, 70 miles an hour down I-90. Car pull over side of the road, flashes on, and as I'm passing, all I see is a pair of legs sticking out from underneath the car, and a woman standing there with a phone like this. And I'm like, he's learning to change a flat tire now. Because now he needs to know. Right? How crazy is that, though? That's the way we live, work, and play. And so then it becomes what's worth memorizing, what's worth knowing. Should we have to memorize all 50 states? Who remembers doing that? Who remembers memorizing the capitals? And how many times have you used that information? Or how many times have you still had to look it up on Siri? It's an interesting concept. This idea of what you know today isn't as important as what you can know tomorrow. Is the idea of lifelong learning that we're trying to instill in kids. And almost 35% of all jobs by 2035 are going to want kids and people that can learn when they need to know something. Because we don't know what you're going to need to know tomorrow. But can you learn? And can you learn what you need to learn? The idea of adaptability, or having some business sense. Almost 45% of all jobs, almost 50% of all jobs by 2035 are being a consultant. Nobody wants to be an employee anymore. Everybody wants to work for themselves, especially this generation. This generation is frustrating to employers. Because this generation, my generation and the generation before me, we believed in hard work. And we believed in not missing a day of work. My dad was proud that my dad was a biology teacher. Proud he had 180 sick days. That he went 5 years without missing a day of work. I can't find somebody under the age of 32 that's made it a whole month. Because this generation, not right or wrong, is not willing off living life for today. And so what they do, they travel, they take time off, they use all of their sick days, they use all of their vacation days. That's the way you live in 2016, and if you're under the age of 32. If you're a millennial, you live for today, you don't save all your eggs for tomorrow. Different mindset. Different mindset of how we live today. This idea, like, I talk to people in their 20s all the time. Favorite question to ask somebody in their 20s? Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? Never once have I had a 20-year-old tell me, working for the same job, or working for the same company that I'm working for today. There's no loyalty. This idea you're going to work for a company for 30 years? Psh, good luck with that. Good luck if I stick around for 3. Different mindset. Not saying it's right or wrong, saying it's different. Right? Now, you put all these together, and that's what a well-rounded person looks like in 2035. Turn and talk about those ideas with your partners. Activity. And what I need you to do is to get into groups of somewhere between 4 and 6. Once you have created your group of 4 or 6, what I need you to do is one person from your group, we're going to see how good you are at organizational skills. Remember that? That was one of our traits? Once you get into groups of 4 or 6, we need one piece of paper and 2 pens that are different colors. Alright, so get yourself into groups of 4 or 6. You need one piece of paper. You can stand around the tables. And you need 2 different color pens. Paper. Will you write citizenship or citizen? We're going to make a bubble map. I know you weren't told that you're going to have to do an activity. You will be graded. We have a group right now. Write the word citizen or citizenship in the middle. And then, as a team, we want our children to grow up to be good citizens. What does that mean? as a team, what are all of those traits? When we say we want our children to grow up to be good citizens, what do we mean by that?
I want them to have a
See
job.
if you can make some kind of mind map or some kind of bubble chart, or whatever you want, however it is best to the traits of being a good citizen. Use only one color. You only use one color. Pick a color.
Just do some emojis. Just do emojis.
Okay, I've heard this before, so I'm gonna complain about shit. You guys figure it out.
Oh, you've done this? Yeah. He's a cheater.
Have a job.
Job or career?
Job slash.
But think about it as a citizen, having a job, I mean,
Means
that's
you're paying
contributing.
taxes.
That's contributing. What else?
I want to have a family.
Okay.
That's future.
Well, that's populating.
You pick up your other colored marker.
Oops.
You need to pick up your other colored marker. Students in the room, will you please help the adults follow directions, please?
I don't know, I'd never read it.
Above the word citizen or citizenship, write the word digital. So we're turning the phrase from citizenship into digital citizenship. And then, with your new colored pen, feel free to cross out anything that you believe no longer should be. Put a star next to things that you think are even more important. And feel free to add other traits that make a good digital citizen. Teams? Here's what I'd like you to do next. You might have noticed that these are big sticky notes. They're my favorite kind. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is it's a time to kind of get up and stretch. I've been sitting for a little bit. Will you put your big sticky notes, I feel, sorry about this, David, you're going to be here all night taking out big sticky notes. We put all the big sticky notes on the wall, and then give yourself a stretch, and just do a gallery walk, and see what other teams put. There's some really good words used, I like this. And then find your way quickly. So, get on the wall, do a gallery walk.
And now I'm going to walk right in front of you. So did anyone come that I know?
Do them upside down, nice. It's all good. It's all good. We'll just have to tilt our heads. It's all good.
I can do that.
Value.
Activity to do as a family. If you can sit down as a family and do a similar activity of what is it that we value? What is it that we as a family consider to be a good citizen? And then change that into being a digital citizen, is some really good talking points for families to start thinking about what is it that we respect, what is it and who is it that we want to be as a family. I've had families come to me after doing this type of activity at home and had some really open and honest conversations of what it means. Here's the other thing I like about this activity. Parents, you already have the skills to do this. Being responsible face-to-face is the same as being responsible online. We just need to make sure we're having the same conversation with kids. Okay? When you look how many things you starred that overlap into these worlds, we already have the skill set. We just need to make sure we're teaching both worlds, because we now live blended. Yeah, oh, I know it. Of course, yes.
And I think what we're struggling is what's the messaging network? To me, that's the hard part, and that's what we're dealing with in school.
To wrap up then, I want us just to think about what are some things we can do as parents. There was a great research came out that they asked parents, what is it that are things that you want to say to your kids? And then they asked the kids, what are things you want your parents to know? So I hope you're ready for this. Number one is this idea of having a family contract. Now, sitting down and having some kind of digital family contract, I think is a great activity to do as a family. The hardest part is trying to keep with it and stick with the contract as a family. And usually the first person to break the contract isn't a child. So here's what some of the things are, right? It's my phone, I bought it, I paid for it, and I'm loaning it to you, aren't you the greatest? That's what parents think. Here's what the kid said. When I have something to say, Mommy needs to close the laptop and listen. That's a good rule. I like that rule. Here's another good rule. Do not use this technology to lie, fool, or deceive another human being. Do not involve yourself in conversations that are hurtful to others. Be a good friend first, or stay out of the conversation. From a parent perspective. A good rule for a kid. No one, including mom and dad, can check text messages or answer the phone when we are at the dinner table, watching a television program or film together, or playing a game together. That's what voicemail and answer machines are for. That's the rule kids want to have in place. Right? So it becomes interesting. Here's an interesting video. See what you think about this.
I How was the birthday party? You have to send me some pictures. How was your week at school?
Are you missing out on real time? Learn how to find a healthy balance with technology at commonsense.org.
So commonsense.org is a great resource for parents. They have all kinds of great parent resources there, activities to do with your kids. There's more videos like that to do with your kids that are quite interesting to watch. Not all of them make parents look so bad, even though a lot of times we are. So it's an interesting one. And here's one of the things that I think about. We see pictures like this, and we think to ourselves, how horrible is that? How horrible is it that this generation sits around not talking to each other, and they're all on their devices? And we see pictures like this all the time of teens hanging out, and we're just like, man, something's wrong. But here, try this on for size. When kids are this age, and they're Skyping their grandparents, we think it's amazing. Any grandparents in here that Skype or FaceTime your kids? Most amazing stuff ever, isn't it? Incredible. And so we're teaching them at this age that it's okay, and that this technology stuff's amazing. It connects you like never before. And they get this age, and we're like, it's bad. You should stay off it. You should be talking to your friends. You shouldn't be using your technology. And then you get this age, we think it's amazing again. Why is it that it's okay for technology to be amazing, and when you're this age, technology is okay to be amazing, but when you're at this age, you're not supposed to be on it? That's interesting to me. Because the kids that are doing this now are the kids that were Skyping grandma and grandpa when they were 4, just 5 or 6, 7, 10 years ago. And so they've been raised to believe this is the way life is. This is the way life is if you're a middle schooler. And here's the thing, they are doing the best they can. It's their first time of being 10. It's their first time of being 12. It's their first time of being 6. We have the luxury as adults to look back and remember a grand old time. They're struggling through it for the first time. And they're doing the best they can with the tools and technology that's available to them. And it's interesting how we look at this tech, and depending on your age, I find it fascinating. If you're over the age of 55, you like phone calls. You know, that was the technology if you were in that age group. You used to like calling people. My mother-in-law is on the phone like 3 hours a day talking to her friends. Loves the phone. Calls people all the time. If you're between the ages of 55 and 35, you like email. We're the generation that walk around and say, well, you email that to me? Well, you put that in, I'm not going to remember, just send me an email. We're the email generation. If you're between the ages of 35 and 18, you're the texting generation. Everything is done in a text message. Here's a little tip. If you're over the age of 5, you do not call somebody under the age of 35. Unless you text them first and ask, may I call you? Just a little tip. Because if you call somebody under the age of 35, it better be an emergency. Somebody better be dying. Or they don't answer the phone. Because you don't call people anymore. This hit me, and here's the generation in our schools today. You wonder why they walk around with phones like this? This is how you use a phone for this generation. I called my goddaughter for her birthday this summer, and I'm like, hey, sweetie, happy birthday. And she's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm calling you to wish you happy birthday. She's like, why? Because it's your birthday. Will you hang up? That was rude. Next thing I know, Google Hangout rings, and it's her face. And she's like, that's better. You see, this generation expects it. Why would you just want to hear somebody when I can see you? Why would I just want to hear somebody when I can see your facial expressions, and I can see your smile, or I can see you have feelings and you're crying? That's how you make a phone call for this generation. This? I don't get this. I had a teacher come to me. I was doing a workshop like this down in Auburn, and the teacher came up to me. She's like, this hit me in full force the other day. She's like, I was talking to we're sitting down to dinner, and my 14-year-old son was on the phone, and I was like, hang up the phone, hang up the phone. He hung up the phone, he said, Mom, what are you doing? I don't get this. Right, it should be this, hang up the phone, hang up the phone. Right? It's not good or bad, it's different. It's not good or bad, it's different. And they're a different generation. The greatest research I've seen come out about this generation is done by a woman here in Seattle. Her name is Dana Boyd. She's funded mostly by Microsoft. And for 10 years, she followed this generation. And I think this is a must-read for parents. When I buy technology for my goddaughters, I buy the book for their mom, and I make her read it before the girls could got their phones. Made her basically forced her. When you got a 12-year-old that's waiting to get her first phone, mom finishes the book. Right? Fantastic book. Here's what the research says about this generation. This generation has less freedom today than any generation before them. They are not allowed to go outside and play, even though we always say, I wish they would just go outside and play. They're not allowed to hang out at the mall. They can't go to parks after dark, because parks don't stay open after dark. They can't hang out at the 7-Eleven. Where did you hang out as a teenager? And there's no way you would let your son or daughter go there today. They have less freedoms. I was allowed to ride my bike 7 blocks to my friend's house. Now you're allowed to ride your block maybe in the street in front of you, maybe from stop sign to stop sign, unless the parents have done a background check on your friend's parents. And so kids today have less freedom than they've ever had before. Yet they are the same as we were. And when you hit the age of 10, school is not as important as friends, as social. And part of being a teenager today is being social. Part of always being a teenager was being social. Finding ways to hang out with your friends. We used to lie to our parents. We're going over to Billy's house and we end up over at Susie's house. Right? We found ways that parents didn't know where we were every moment of the day, because being a teenager is about breaking away from your parents. Being a teenager plays an amazing role in a democracy. A teenager's role is to push the boundaries of what we believe. It's always been a teenager's role, which is why most big things come out of university systems, are started by university students. And teenagers push. You give every teenager a laptop at this school? You give every elementary kid a laptop at this school? First thing they do is push, where does this thing go? Where do my blocked? How am I supposed to get there? Their job is to push the boundaries. What is blocked? What is unblocked? Then I'm going to try to get around it. I'm going to try to get around it. Can I get around it this way? That's their job. Their job is to push boundaries. And they always have, and they always will. It's the job of a teenager. Our job is just to hang on for dear life. So research shows they have less freedom than any generation before them. I talk to kids all the time, and I'm like, would you like to go to your friend's house? I'd love to go to my friend's house. Well, why don't you? Well, because she's busy, or I'm busy, or my mom won't let me. And in the mid-1990s, a report came out that showed that the kids that were being the most disruptive were kids that had unstructured time in their life. So as good parents, what did we do? Structured it. Structured every moment of their day to where kids have very little time to play anymore. And so what does research show? We force them into social networks, and then we yell at them for being there. There's a reason why kids are on Instagram. There's a reason why they created their own app. You realize Snapchat was created by a 22-year-old who knew that there needed to be a place where parents couldn't go. You had places where parents couldn't go, or parents didn't want to go, or parents didn't understand. They just didn't happen to be in digital spaces. They were in physical spaces. But we don't allow kids to go in physical spaces anymore, so we push them into these digital spaces to be teens. And then we yell at them for being there. I'm not saying it's right, I'm saying it's what is. And we have to start respecting the places that they hang out. And we need to start having the conversations about the places they hang out so we can understand them. And so we can help them be a teenager. And they're going to make mistakes. I've got a feeling your teenage years weren't perfect. And I want them to make mistakes. Making mistakes as a teenager is one of the best places to make mistakes, because you have caring adults who are going to help you through it. And I know it feels like your life is going to end today. I had a girl break up with me too. And I know what that feels like, but you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. We have to start thinking about, I noticed on some of the things, we use this idea of addiction. Yes, there is internet addiction, but we have to be very careful the way we use that phrasing with kids. Because I have seen kids who I could not get to stop reading a book for days, and we've never said, oh my gosh, they're addicted to books. There's a difference between being interested and being addicted. And we have to be very careful with the way we use those phrasings. Being interested is playing a game until I master it, and then I never go back and hit that. How many of you have games sitting around your house that you bought for your kids, and then all of a sudden they mastered the game and now they never go play it anymore? Or you had to go sell it back in, right? That's interest. That's not addiction, that's interest. And we see a lot of interest with technology. It's a very interesting thing. Right? Not saying that addiction doesn't happen. We just got to be careful that we don't mix interest with addiction. One of the things you can do with your kids is start using I understand statements. Because we all live in a digital world as well. How many of you in here are on Facebook? I think a majority of you. Okay. I use Facebook because that's usually where our generation hangs out. The kids have given up on Facebook because all the adults moved in. So they went down the road, right? But you start thinking about ways you can have conversations with your students at your house. Saying I understand does not prevent us from parenting, but it does not stop us from setting boundaries and having consequences. It does start to build bridges and walls. And so here are a couple of things that I have seen and I try to go to, and it's a really hard place as parents. But some things like, I love technology too. A lot. Right? I like likes too. And I can have that conversation. It's okay to say, I like technology too. We can have a conversation. But there's a good and there's a bad. And sometimes knowing when to disconnect is the hardest thing. And that's not a generational thing. That's a society thing. Knowing when to disconnect is sometimes the hardest part as a society that we're dealing with. Technology distracts me at work too. What are some things that you do when you're distracted from technology at work? How many of you have to turn in your cell phone when you go into the workplace? 4, 5, 6, so many military people, huh? Yeah. The rest of us, nobody takes my cell phone off me. Right? So it's interesting. So how do you deal with that? Do you talk with your children about, okay, you need to focus and get this work done. What does that space look like? Does that mean you have music playing? Does that mean you don't have music playing? Right? Does it mean that you need to put your phone away? Do you need to put your phone in the kitchen? Do I need to hold your phone for you for the next 45 minutes? What does that look like? Right? I like likes too. If you're on Facebook, you like getting likes as much as somebody else. You like getting comments on your posts. That's why you post this stuff. And Facebook is where we're our perfect selves. We have different personas. Facebook is the perfect you. You're the perfect family on Facebook. Every photo you've ever noticed? Everybody I follow is their perfect selves on Facebook. Like the perfect photo of the family. It's not real, but I like that. We like Facebook for that. It's a way we stay connection. You can come to me. When you see something you don't like, know that we can have a conversation. I'm not going to yell at you. We can have a conversation about it, and you're going to see things you don't like. No matter what filter a school puts in place, no matter what filter you put in place at home, something will get through. It's not an if, it's a when. And when it happens, have you had the conversation with your children to know that they can come to you when it happens? The hardest thing to block for any filter is pictures. Pictures are just really, really hard to block. And you can have all kinds of safe searches on. And pictures are just tough. And we don't try to see them. But when you do see them, what do we do at your house? Do we close the laptop? Do we come get an adult? Do you understand you're going to be in trouble if you keep going there? But if you come to me and we can have a conversation about it, we'll talk about it. Open up those lines of communication. It's no longer optional. We live in a blended world. And we have to start thinking about what does it mean to parent in a blended world. And just like you're the last generation to remember life without the internet, you're the first generation to raise blended children. Lucky, lucky you. Also today, as we wrap up, one of the companies that I run has just started parenting courses. We have 6 courses called Parenting in the Digital Age. And if you use that, you can take a picture of that. If you use the offer code CK Parents, you can save 25%. You can take all 6, you can take 1, you can take 4, take however many you want. They have videos of conversations with parents. It comes with a free book if that is more your style. But know that we are trying to put resources here because we are the first generation to raise blended children, and we have to come together and keep having these conversations and do the best we can. You are all great parents. We just have to continue to have the conversations and continue to get better. Thank you for spending the hour with me. Have a good time.
Thank you, Jeff. Just a couple things. You're here is the fact that you're here is a great thing as parents. We want to be parents that make our kids better because of us, not in spite of us. You're here, and your kids will be better because you're here. Each of you is different. Each of your families are different, and are going to approach some of these things differently. We wanted to present the resources. Not necessarily are we here to tell you all the answers of how to fix it or how to do it the right way. I have 5 kids. I was a perfect parent on number 1. I'm not sure I know a whole lot to talk about parenting after number 5, who's 22 sometime later this week. So parenting is learning, and we are going to make mistakes no matter what we do. Should I do more? Should I do less? Likelihood is you might be wrong either way. So continue to search after the answers for you and your family. We'll try to provide additional resources so that you have some, but talk to your friends, talk to your kids. The digital contract, wish I'd had that for number 5. I mean, there's just things that you'll learn as you go along. But again, thank you for coming, thank you for your time, and thank you for caring about the kids. Yours, ours, and those down the street from you. Have a great evening.